Hello there, I'm Ishiro, and today I would like to make a small presentation on Weiss Schwarz deck archetypes. So, the first concept to understand is that archetypes in Weiss Schwarz don't really work like in classic TCGs. We don't really have clear aggro or mid-range decks like we would have in games like Hearthstone. And moreover, there's never really been in the community, I believe, an actual classification on archetypes. So this is what I would like to try today. Keep in mind that all of that is my opinion. So let's jump right into it. The first one I would like to talk about is rush decks, or soul rush decks. The concept is simple. You want to play one climax every turn, if possible, to deal damage, and just slam 3 characters one climax every time. And this kind of deck maintains the end size using climax combo, most of the time trying to loop them and trying to just replay it on every turn. And since it doesn't really focus on making a lot of resources, it will try to end the game with a cheap level 3 combo, but doesn't ask for a lot of stock. For instance, for combos, one of the first one was Chimakaze. When you reverse the opponent, you get to charge your deck for one of your counter characters. We got an upgrade in Maguro from Puyo Puyo, where on attack you can check 4 cards of your deck and take 1 character. So it's really cool because this kind of combo are costless, so they don't really ask you any stock for getting back your hand. And Maguro especially lets you mill your deck and get through your first refresh very fast, especially if you're free. In recent times we also got like even more innovative combos, like Lily from the Villain Saga, where when you play the climax you return her to end and you summon a level 0 from your waiting room and place it on any slot of the stage. You can also note that Lily is actually on a Brainstorm. Brainstorm are also very important for rush decks in order to refill your hand, since you'll be sliming climaxes and using so many resources on every turn. So you really need some things to get going. So effects like Brainstorms are important in that aspects. And then for the level 3s, we got some profiles like Mocha. On attack you check the top 2 cards of your opponent deck, and you can send them to a waiting room. So either you see 2 free damage or you see climaxes and then you can get rid of them. It doesn't cost any stock or hand. We got older profiles like Musashi that you see sometimes in recent sets, where you cancel the damage, you mill the top card of your deck and you deal X damage to your opponent. X equals the card you milled +1. It's just a way to get damage without using any combo climax. So it's a good complementary for your game plan or for plan B. And we also got like Marine, just any combo that just asks you for 1 stock, maybe 1 character of your hand to discard, to deal damage to your opponent. In the case of Marine, it's 2 damage and extra power. It could be 3 damage, 1 damage, anything that's not too much, so that with just 6 stock or 7, you can make a triple combo. Pros of rush decks. These are effective against all playstyles and they're very easy to play. You can typically see them in every set, and you should have like a okay win rate with any rush deck you play. It really depends then on its strength and to its answer to other archetypes, but it's really easy to play. For cons, you got sometimes limited defensive options, like you won't have a lot of power during your opponent's turn, depending on if it's a type of combo that doesn't really have it. Most of the time, like rush decks will have like a lot of power on their turn and close to no power on the opponent's turn. And often we don't bother running anything to reduce the soul of your opponent. And it can also struggle to close the game from behind. For example, killing an opponent from level 2, if they are a bit compressed, it will be hard for rush decks. They really want to be ahead and be the first one to put the opponent to level 3 and then unleash their combos. For next archetype, you got stall decks. So this kind of deck prioritizes surviving, and rather than trying to gamble on cancelling, they will run effects that reduce or mitigate the damage. Most of the time it will run a lot of healing, ways to reduce the soul, anti-damage and other stuff like this. For instance, one of the first one we got is Lagorizon Shiroe, which says as long as you're on the field, you cannot take any damage from auto effects. So any kind of finisher like that marine you just saw before, the deal 2 damage, no, you don't take that. So you have to rely on vanilla attack against this kind of deck. Other ways could be the -2 Souls combo. Kuro from Fate Prismacolade was actually one of the first one, where when you get to play the climax, on the next turn, your opponent facing the Kuro will get -2 Soul. She is an early play, so the idea is basically to play 3 of the Kuro, and your opponent has -2 Soul on every other characters, so unless they trigger and manage to do 3 or 4 Soul attacks, you'll basically take no damage for that turn. And then the other way is to play just a lot of healing. This card from Index, Recovery Magic. Heal 2, it's also a backup, so you can heal during your opponent's turn after you took damage. I would like to dive into one specific case, it's actually the Charlotte case. This set has a lot for stalling. Like basically the only Charlotte deck that's viable is the Ultra Stall deck. This now, you have to discard a Climax, and then you can choose the character facing it, and it cannot front attack. So it has to side attack with the -3 soul penalty. So most of the time, unless the opponent can climb to 4 soul, you'll take no damage from the attack in front of now, as long as you can discard the climax. On top of that, you also got the anti-burn, same effect as Shiroe, except this guy is in memory, so he's almost impossible to kick out. And for last, we got the Scry effects. During your opponent's turn, when you take damage and you did not cancel, you can look at the top card of your deck and send it to a waiting room or keep it on your deck if it's a climax. So even when you do take damage from vanilla attacks, you can like mitigate them and save other climaxes. So because you got all of that, once you reach level 3, you can basically stay in level 3 for as long as you want, as long as the opponent doesn't have the right answers for this card. The Proto Stall deck, they do prevent damage without relying on the cancel, and it tries to play longer games, and if the opponent doesn't have solutions for your field, it's just a pretty much easier win. The problem is that it will lose hard to removals, like the Wind Trigger returning your characters to hand, or effect that destroy your board. Most of the time it will feature a weak level 1, where you can't really mill or have enough power to disrupt the opponent, or weak level 3 where you don't have any finishing power. That's the case for Charlotte, for instance. The only finishers I believe are clock kicks, so only small insets of 1 damage, very hard to kill with this deck. And most of the time, like for the -2 soul combos, you'll need to draw the climax multiple turns, and if you fail to do so, you'll just become a regular deck once again. For the next archetype, we got power decks. These decks aim to have a lot of power on the character during both players' turns, so that you can reverse easily, and your opponent has to crash into your characters. So they either have to side attack, or they accept that on the next turn you can direct attack on the slots. This is an instance of quintessential contemplate, just making an insane board on level 2, filling with level 3. Nowadays power decks are mostly 8 standby decks. As a reminder, this is the standby trigger. We used to have some power decks where you either gained a lot of power during the opponent turn with a combo climax, or you just had to play cost, like play 1-1 or play 2-2s and hope that they survive. But with standby now you can play these costless, and it really made a whole new archetype available in the game. For instance, you got the Nino. When she comes from her standby card, she can stun immediately, and I believe she attacks at 12k. So that's a lot of power. She can even take down early plays, level 3 from the opponents. Then you also got cards like Ghislaine. She gives 1000 power to all of your board, as well as being pretty buffy herself. She can come out at level 1, making your level 1 even harder to remove. And another profile you often see in the standby decks is utilitaries that can return to the end when you play the climax. So that you can return it to hand, so you make 3 spots for your card that comes from standby on the board. In this case, Toka from Dead or Alive, she's a Brainstorm, and she also gives power until the end of your opponent's turn when you play a Climax and pays the cost to return her to hand. Pros of a power deck. You can deny on-reverse effects, because your opponent will probably struggle to reverse you. You get a free extra soul from direct attacks, and your opponent will struggle to direct attack you. So you can kind of mitigate this damage this way by taking on the board. Triggering climaxes has a huge positive impact. For instance, like in Quintuplet, when you trigger like 3 standby, and you can even give the standby effect to one of your cards, you can just have a full board of level 3s at 2-0 and have like 14k power and really profit from that. And the other advantage is that you can play level 3 finishers from level 2, which can be pretty relevant, especially in mirror match, I think. But power decks also come with arcans. They do struggle to push damage in the early game, because the standby trigger doesn't give any soul. So they really rely on having this direct attack to gain soul. They also often run a lot of triggers, but that really depends from decks to decks. The other thing is that if your characters survive, you don't have much board space to play come in play effects, so it's hard to actually control your decks. They do have a lot of profile that sack themselves to make space so that you can play finishers again, but you really don't have the same kind of deck control that other rush decks have. And it's the case that your characters don't survive, it's hard to maintain hand size. A lot of them have Encore, so that you can just discard the cards to keep them on the board, but some of your cards won't have that, and you'll often have very low hand size, but you try to keep the same board for the whole game. On to the next one, combo decks. So combo decks aim to finish the game with a big but expensive combo, but often ask a lot of hand or stock. They spend the game gathering resources and combo pieces, and they mostly disregard what the opponent is doing. One of the old examples of combo we have is the Ilia, the Kaleidoscope Ilia, where you can read the effect if you want, but basically it's a very complicated setup so that all your characters can have a burn 1 on attack, and you basically try to have this effect 2 or 3 times, but it's pretty complicated and it asks you to keep climaxes in your hand for the whole game. We got like more recent combo decks that were very good. We can dive into the Tokyo Revengers case. So we got this Chifuyu. You basically play 2 of them, and they're called the dual liners. You get to stock more attacking with them, but you can only make 2 attacks per turn. So you totally let your opponent snowball and have a 3 direct attacks, and you don't even reverse the full board, but you don't really care as long as you're making your own stock. Because all of this is also Baji. So the combo asks you to pay 8 and discard 3, and sack your whole board basically, which is a lot, but you got to do 3 attack on your normal turn, and then you give a lot of backers to the Mikey, which is basically 5 bar 1s, and then he's on attack. And with all the other stock you made, you have other ways to deal damage. So it's really slow in the mid game, but it has a very explosive finish. There are other cases that you can look at. This is Gura, Gargura. The combo is very strong. With it can basically deal 2, then 1, then 1, then it's on attack. But to do 3 of that, you would need 9 stock and 7 cards in hand. If you include the Climax and the 3 Guras. So what player actually run is a standby with a ASCII combo that lets you sack the standby to search for characters. So the idea is that you summon Gura of standbys so that you need less hand size and less stock to actually play a triple Gura. And then the whole deck is based around things to help you search for Gura, over PCs, and try to contest a bit on the board. Pros of combo decks. Because they make so much stock, they can cancel a lot in the mid game. Like on level 2. If you it's not rare to end up with 12 or even 15 clean stock with this kind of deck. The other upside is that you can finish your opponent from level 2 before they have the chance to even play their own finishers. and you look very intelligent when the deck works. Problems would be that it loses hard to disruption. It could be stock swap, it could be some stall tools. You would let your opponent snowball a lot because you're not really reacting to their board. And when combo decks are too good, they tend to be hit by the ban list. It was the case for Gura, it was the case for Key All-Star, it was the case for Love Live Superstar. We see that pattern often when a combo deck becomes too good and beats everything. Bushiro just wants to remove them from the game. So run them at your own risk. This is not really a category, but I wanted to include it. It's a meme decks. These are basically decks that try to maximize value out of one cheesy card and have the whole build revolved around that card. Most of the time it will actually fit into another archetype, as you will see. One of the first I want to talk about is Freeze. Basically, you discard 3 cards of your hand, you put the Freeze events into your level zone, so you get 1 more level, and then you get 1 more turn. So the whole idea of this deck is that you make a big sacrifice in resources, you take 1 whole level, you're gonna make it worth it. You're gonna patch for enough damage over 2 turns. One of the oldest one was Execution from Persona 3, where you return all cards from your clock to your hand. So you basically have to imagine that you are at 3-6, and then you suddenly heal for 6 and get +6 in hand. But you gotta set up this 8 stack for that, and then you don't have really any stack for finishers. So it will kind of fit more in the stallish deck. And we got Best Shots. The climax has no other effects than the recollection effect. So if it's in memory, all your characters with Best Shot gains plus 4k power. It's pretty good, but Best Shot characters are not very good. And to put the climax in memory, you need 5 precise characters on the board and the combo climax. So, really, it's too much effort for the payoff it is, but it's pretty fun when you get it. So, pros of meme decks. You do get to put your opponent into an unknown and very uncomfortable position. They really don't know what to do the first time they face it, and you get to laugh a lot. Cons, you lose games. You ever lose games because you didn't gather the combo, or it was just not enough. So, what about control decks? You might ask. Control decks would be decks that try to interfere with your opponent's game plan. Mostly by destroying their back row or removing cards from their hand. But we don't really have any support for this kind of deck in the current Weiss Schwarz. In the current size of the game, we got some control tools, but they are more played in rush or stall decks. For instance, we got recently the Makima from Chainsaw Man, where she gets her own combo from her own effects, and then you can basically destroy one of your opponent's character. But they just play 2 of the climax into a normal rush deck, for instance. We could also quote the 8-wind Data Life deck, where if you trigger wind, instead of returning the character to the opponent's hand, you put it on top of their deck. So it could be potentially 1 more free damage. But you have to pay 8-wind, which is a bad trigger, and the rest of the deck is basically a rush deck. I would say that the best control deck right now could be Overlord, but even then it's a bit more of a rush deck. And it has this whole combo finishing thing with the event in memory. So control decks, not so hard right now. What about memory decks, you might ask also? There are some decks that try to send as many cards in memory as possible to improve our compression. We could quote Grisaya, that has a ton of cards that go to memory. Including this event that you can basically refill stock and fix with it. But most of the time, even for memory decks, it's rarely the only game plan. Like Grisaya at its core, it's more of a rush deck. It's very aggressive, it has the anti-heal effect, so I think that memory decks should be put into a subcategory, like you could call a rush memory deck, or a control memory deck. But I'm not fan of making it its own category because it's not the only goal to make a big memory. Also, one issue with memory decks is that they're disappearing more as we see more cards like this, where if the opponent has 5 or more cards in memory, they basically reduce it to 4 cards only. So it's hard to gain a lot of compression with it, now that this kind of profile are more and more often appearing in sets. So let's take a look at the actual archetype tree. Keep in mind this is only my opinion. So power decks, because there is so much power, they really don't struggle to remove the stall cards from stall decks. Stall will usually stop combo, or at least force a lot of side attack on the combo turn. So, and because combo really doesn't really disrupt stall, they can just loop their -2 stall combo forever. And also like stall decks that have the anti-damage, they can completely stop combo if the combo is relying on auto damage. And the combo decks, they tend to kind of profit from the slow early game for power decks to make their own setup. And in the middle of that, we get like the rush deck. That would be the equivalent of mid-range decks. It's basically the most popular archetype because it has a chance against every kind of style. Also on the side, we got control, and like the only thing it's really beating is stall decks if they can remove their stall tools from the board. Keep in mind that matchups, for the most part, they will be even. They only become favored if you have like specific answers to the archetype you are facing. And even in any matchup, you can just win by cancelling more than the opponent at the crucial time, even if you are supposedly favored. So do keep that in mind. This is more like a representation so that you get a good idea of what decks are than trying to say, oh, the meta has a lot of power decks, I'm going to run a combo decks. Please do look out for the specific insets. Especially because decks can have tools from other archetypes. We got the Tool of Rue anti-damage that was run in the Yami deck. Because at the time the Yami finisher did not ask for any stock, you could afford to run this anti-damage and have a bit more lasting power. Also, from recent set you got the Chainsaw Man, the Kishibe. If you run 3 of them, if you have 10k power on your front row, and the combo is working from the back row, so you can basically rush but have a lot of power during your turn in the opponent turn, which can really throw off power decks. And you also got like this kind of control tool, the Towa. It was run in a combo in the Kanata Marine deck, where you can, it's an assist level, but you can also sack it and move one your opponent character. So basically advance one of their back row, reduce their hand size this way, keep their brainstorm. So you do have to look out for a specific of any deck. And last question, what kind of deck should you run? For beginners, I would always say that rush decks are the most common and the most easy to pick up and to play. I believe that almost every trade deck is based on the rush model, so that's definitely something you can want if you are a beginner. Also, I do believe in Weiss Schwarz, the priority is always to play the series you love, but do your research on what are the strong archetypes in the series you like. For instance, if you want to play Mushoku Tensei, like there's no really debate, the best deck will be a power deck. You can make some rush decks out of it, I believe, with yellow and green, but it will not be as strong as the power deck red with the 8 sound die that we have. So I would recommend to do your research. And also, just try your decks. Try your decks from different series. Just see what kind of playstyle you prefer, and you'll learn more and more about what you actually want to play. Alright, that was all. Thank you for watching. Hope you learned stuff. Don't remember to share, like, and subscribe if you like this video. And peace!